mean trader, I would actually probably just trade like, and so I was trading lower time frames. So I would probably just trade like New York Open, or I would trade like Asian session even, or Fridays, when you get like a Friday retracement, which is pretty consistent. Like that's what I would probably do. That would be, in some ways that would be easier. Like if that was my bread and butter, reversion of the mean, I could actually, because the good news about that is they happen so like predictable. Like, a lot of times when New York comes in, it's going to revert, or when London comes in, it's going to revert, or when New York closes, it's going to revert. Like there's this typical times where Fridays, end of the week, it's going to revert. Like it's really Asia, almost always, not always, but a lot of times it's going to kind of drift one way and revert. So in some ways, that's kind of I wish I had that mindset where I wanted to trade that way, because it's kind of like it's good if you're time poor. Like you can set aside certain blocks and go, okay, well, this is when it should happen, right?
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I do the same thing. I stay up till like 1 or 2 and then put the trades in. But even Hawaii was better.
Yeah, even Hawaii. Exactly. Even Hawaii is better. Yeah. I actually think if I had to choose, I would say the best time zone would be like Thailand, Indonesia over there, because what happens is there, London, it starts kind of in the afternoon there, like, 3 p.m. or 2 p.m. Like that's pretty cool, because you can see London open, and then later on you can see New York open. It's just like that would be the best. Yeah, that would be the best. Like Thailand, Indonesia, right around there. You could live in Bali, get a big fat house for like nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for sharing.
Thanks.
All right. All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and is not trading or investment advice. I recently stopped watching Netflix. I realized the programming was a lot of gloom and doom and end of the world kind of stuff.
Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. All right, Walter, let's talk a little bit about the media and that effect it can have on your mindset.
So for me, the biggest thing about the media is that the guys that you listen to on those business channels who talk about the markets and stuff, at least half of them are wrong. And sometimes, and sometimes more than half. Like, you have situations like, especially where there's a roaring bubble or something. It's really hard to find the dissenters. Like, they're very few, and sometimes they don't get any airplay. Peter Schiff comes to mind. So people who follow Peter Schiff would know, he was one of the lone voices, in 2006, 2007, saying that the housing market was going to crash in the US. And he was literally laughed off the TV. Like, all the other guests thought you were an idiot. Like, literally. And he ended up being right, of course. And so, I think it's easy to read newspapers or like The Economist or, whatever, Sky News or CNBC in the States or whatever it is in your country. Like, it's easy to kind of get locked into that. And I think that's a mistake. Even, FX Street is interesting because at least at FX Street, they have multiple points of view. Like, in other words, like fundamental points of view and technical points of view, which is I think really good. Usually when you're looking at the TV, you're only going to get the fundamental point of view. And that's why when I talk to people about trading that don't know anything about it, they often go, wow, how do you keep on track of all the world events and stuff like that? Like, they always talk about that because they assume that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that isn't really necessarily the case for a lot of retail traders who are technical, like I am and you are, So, so I think the problem with that is the social proof. Like, you get into following that cognitive bias called social proof, and you guys can look that up. But essentially, following what everyone else does. Yeah. And I think that's the issue with the media. For me, like, that's the biggest one, is that you can kind of get sucked into that mindset. Well, if everyone says the euro is going up on TV, it's going up, right? Like, there's all these reasons why, or it has to go up, or oil has to go up. It's almost at zero or whatever. Yeah. So.
Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode. Yeah. I mean, I guess I can't fault a lot of traders for doing that, because when you're starting out, you kind of need that frame of reference, right? It's something to look at. But yeah, it definitely can affect. And you never know what the agendas are behind some of those tips or whatever, right? So
yeah, that's a good point. Like in Australia, the number one advertiser in Australia in all the papers, all the newspapers and stuff, it's the real estate market. So the local newspapers, they're reticent to talk about anything in terms of like a bubble or anything like that, because that's their livelihood, right? They literally make their money. Like if it weren't for real estate agents advertising, I don't see how they would exist. Like it's just crazy. So these newspapers, you have to keep that in mind. Like where are they getting their money from? And the same thing. Like every time you see someone on CNBC or whatever on those business channels, a lot of times they're fund managers, right? And that's why I think they're supposed to disclose, right? They're supposed to disclose like, oh, I don't hold any positions of United Airlines or or whatever. Yeah, because they know that they can kind of sway opinion, which is crazy when you think about it. Like these they can sway opinion just by a 15-minute presentation on TV and a quick little 5-question interview, and like all of a sudden that changes, the demand for a stock or something like that. So it's
that is crazy.
It's pretty crazy, really. Yeah.
Maybe we can take it one step further. Also, like I recently stopped watching Netflix. I realized the programming was a lot of gloom and doom and end of the world kind of stuff. So what do you think about that? Like just the overall general media.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that. I have a friend from high school, and she's like an exec at Netflix, and she posted something on her Facebook, and I'm like, dude, what is that? Like what? And she's like, oh, she was at Nickelodeon, and then she jumped ship to Netflix, and she's like, oh, that's like a show on Nickelodeon. I'm like, oh, like it was the character, like a cartoon character or something. I'm like, but someone drew it on the ground or something, or like in concrete or something, like wet concrete or something. I'm like, dude, what is that? It looks like a dead horse or something. And she's like, no, that's like a cartoon that I worked on at Nickelodeon before I went to Netflix. And it's interesting because I think if you follow the money and see where, like who owns what, it's really interesting to see. Like there's some really good books on this. Maybe we can post them in the show notes. But some really good book. Yeah, they're really, really good books on which corporations own which. It's a kind of a giant shell game, and you can kind of see like what the agenda is. Like what would happen if you become fearful of a certain thing? What are people likely to do? What are they likely to buy? What are they likely to seek? All those sorts of things. And we know, for example, like if you blast a headline on the internet or on a newspaper that says something really great, like, oh, amazing, girl who lost legs can walk again with bionic legs, right? You put that on there versus, girl dies in a tragic car accident last night and her family's so sad. Like, you know what I mean? They know which one is going to get more eyeballs on it. They know that it's the gloom and doom, right? And it's so interesting. Like the people that I know who don't spend a lot of time, and I don't watch TV. I would say though that it's hard, even when you're on the internet a lot, it's hard to kind of switch off that news sometimes because it kind of comes into your face. Like they make it really easy. So yeah, that's difficult. But the people I know who don't spend a lot of time watching TV, like they seem happier. You know what I mean? Like it's obvious.
I noticed that too. Like I'd stop watching for a week and then I'd watch for a week and then I was noticeably like a little bit not depressed, but just like not as happy.
Yeah, it's so weird. It's like they need it. They need that fear to make you pay attention. Like fear makes you pay attention more than I think that's kind of how we're wired. I don't fault them because that they do that, because if you think about it, like when do you really want to get healthy? Well, when you have a health scare, right? Like people don't walk around going, oh, I don't want to get fat. I don't want to get fat. I don't want to get fat. Or I don't want to get heart disease. I don't want to get heart disease. I don't want to get heart disease. What happens is they get a scare and the doctor says, dude, you got to lose 20 pounds or something happens to your heart or whatever. And then you're like, holy crap, I need to get healthy. Like, it's always you know what I mean? Like your doctor gets paid when you're sick, right? Doctor doesn't get paid when you're healthy, sort of thing. So yeah, I think that's kind of how we're wired. We just think that things are going to keep going the way they are until something scares us. And that kind of shocks us out of our sleep. And we go, whoa, what's going on here? We have to pay attention to that. And I think it's kind of inbuilt the way the way we're wired.
Yeah, that's true. And that's what sells. So, that's what keeps them in business or whatever. So I get that too. Yeah. All right, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.
holy crap, this guy made $7,000 yesterday, before he ate breakfast. and the reason why he did is because it's all demo. Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. Hey, Walter, today we could talk about performance envy.
Performance envy.
Like, you look at all these traders that are supposedly successful or whatever on Instagram, or like you see some actual results or whatever, and you get envious and you're kind of trying to catch up or whatever. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's a really good point. There are two things I would say about that. Number one, do you know the old, you've probably heard of this, but it's the old, what they used to do for like stock tip newsletters. There was a trick that they would run to get subscribers. Have you heard of this? It's
No.
like where they send. So what they do, and this they can do this online too, and I'll talk about that. But basically, what they used to do, and the reason why I'm thinking of this, because my friend just asked me this question this week. He's getting into trading, and he's like, "Man, these guys are new. They just started trading last month, and they're already making this amount and all that." And he's like, "What's going on here?" And I said, "Well, you got to know the old stock tip newsletter hack." So what they would do is they get these mailing lists, right? And they would send out free stock tips, buy Apple, buy Google, whatever. But half of them would get a buy recommendation, half would get a sell. And then the ones that did well, they would keep sending them. And they would split it buy and sell. So basically what happened is that after a few months, they would have a certain fraction of their mailing list that had like unbelievable, like 100%, you know what I mean? Like everyone, they couldn't go wrong. So then they signed up for the paid subscription. And that's what people do online too. So here's a couple of tips. So when you look at these guys like on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, and to a degree also on YouTube, what you'll see is like these guys posting these outrageous screenshots, right? And so what a couple of things to look for are, I think in MetaTrader, if it's a demo account, I think the order number starts with a 1. So if you see that, right away, that's bullshit, right? Okay, yeah. And the other one is like you'll get these guys that are doing like 100-lot trades. Okay, if you have a 100-lot trade and there's no slippage, like it's bang on hitting your 9-pip profit target or whatever they're going for, then it's also like that's not real, right? That's a demo account. So it's only on a demo account that you don't get the slippage, because 100 lots is about as much as you can do in retail forex. Yeah, it's really hard to get those through, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, you can go current X and stuff like that. You can step it up, but really, if you're looking at these, especially on Instagram, like they're famous for it, right? And Facebook, you'll see these guys and they're posting their screenshots like, holy crap, this guy made $7,000 yesterday, before he ate breakfast. and the reason why he did is because it's all demo. And they can do the same thing that I was talking about, the stock tip newsletter thing. What they do is they have multiple demo accounts. Buying the euro, selling the euro, and they just keep doing that, and then eventually they'll have like a demo account that's like unbelievable, right? Because they just keep, and so that's the same thing. So you just have to be wary of that, I think. And I mean, it's like finding a friend, right? Like if you're trying to find a friend, there's certain things that you like in them, and I think that's the same thing with your trading mentor. Like there's certain people that you kind of jive with, and you're like, I get where this person's coming from. It makes sense. Yeah. This is what I need to work on, right? I mean, that's what it is. It's not. I mean, I'm not here to bag against other mentors. There's some really great mentors out there. They just have different approaches and they have different personalities and they structure their lessons in a different way. So it's really more about you finding a good match based on that, rather than looking for the guy with the best demo account on the internet. You know what I mean? Like that's not going to help you, right? Yeah. So that's my thought anyway. Yeah.
I mean, it's actually really easy to just also cherry pick only the winning trades, right?
Of course, yeah.
So that's what I see a lot in the accounts. Like, oh, this guy's winning every week, but he has no losers. What the heck? So
yeah, it's so funny, man.
Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
And as far as the jealousy part of it, I guess, which is the other thing you're talking about, I think that comes with a lot of self-reflection, like knowing who you are. Like it's easy for me. For example, I've had a bunch of losing trades in a row the last couple of weeks. Although yesterday I got one that looks like it's going to work out, which is great. It's great to get back on the horse and all that. But, it's easy sometimes when your confidence is low, when you're in a losing streak, to think things like, oh, man, if I was just trading, the 1 hour chart instead of the daily chart, I would have been able to get in and out, and and those sorts of things come up, especially when your confidence is low. So I think for me, it's really more about knowing who you are as a trader and locking into that rather than trying to be someone else. And so, you really want to early on define, okay, look, I've got a job. I'm home at 7:30 p.m. So that means I'll check the charts, at 9, from 9 to 10, I'll check the charts. I'll put my orders in. The next morning at 5:30, when I get up in the morning, I'll check my trades, maybe move to break even or whatever I need to do to manage them. You kind of have to set your life around that. Or you're like, oh, I'm retired. I'm 65. I've got all this time. Maybe I will trade the New York Open, and maybe I will get up early in the morning and just, you know what I mean? So it's really more about, knowing yourself, knowing what kind of lifestyle you want to have as a trader. Because it's hard to trade the lower time frame charts. Like, it's hard. It's not only is it addictive and that affects your brain, but also it's hard to like maintain that much focus for that long. It's like being a pro athlete, literally. Like, you have to be so on it all the time. That's why a lot of those people who trade the lower time frames, they take big breaks. They take breaks during the day. They take breaks during the year. They take a lot of time off where they just unplug because they realize the importance of being really on it, on their game when you're executing. Execution becomes so critical when you're trading those in and out trades, those scalping type trades that everyone thinks are so sexy. Yeah.
And I think they also limit themselves, right, to like 1 or 2 hours a day sometimes.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Also, I think trading seems deceptively easy. Like, people think, oh yeah, you just learn the system and then you just make all this money. But then in reality, it's not that simple. And then you beat yourself up about, oh, I can't make the system work, and then you go down that rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. That is the biggest misconception of trading, I think, is what you nailed it. Is in the beginning, it's about the system. Mm-hmm. It's not. It's about you. Like, it's about you and how you execute the system. So that's why, for example, you'll go on the Free Factory forums and you'll find people saying, someone gets on there and says, this system works brilliant. I've been making lots of money, blah, blah, blah. Here it is. Hey guys, do you want to make it into an EA or or improve it or something? They usually say, I want to improve it, or I want to, automate it because I hate sitting around the chart, looking at the charts all day. That's usually how it starts. And then other people get on there and they'll look through it. They'll test it out. They might even trade it live. And they'll go, dude, this sucks. It doesn't work. Mm-hmm. Okay, why is that? You know what I mean? Like, why? How can we both have the same thing and not in that? And that's the same reason why you can't go by the trader that has the best track record and say, that's what I want to do. Because they might not trade in a way that makes sense to you, and you might not have enough time to trade the way they do or whatever. Or maybe they're trading the London Open and you're sleeping during the London Open, or what, you know what I mean? So it really comes down to you are the system. Yeah. And so, as you know, a lot of work you do is going to be on making sure that you follow the rules, that you are in a good mindset, that you are in a situation where the easiest path for you to follow is to actually follow the rules of the strategy. Like that's what you want. You don't want it to be where a different path is easier. Yeah.
And like you say, I think it really comes down to knowing yourself and taking control of the situation. A lot of times I think too many traders try to pass the buck onto the system or the mentor or the trading buddy or whatever. But if you take responsibility, then that's when things start to change, right?
Yeah. It's not the broker's fault. Exactly. It's not your mentor's fault.
They're not
it's not
your
the system's fault. Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
all right,
that's
cool.
right.
Thanks, Walter.
Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.
Yeah, and it also helps you cut out what you don't want to do in your life.
Yeah, that's true too.
Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. All right, so I know I've done this before, and I don't know if you have, but sometimes you tell somebody, just snap out of it. As we both know, it's not that easy. So, or there's some other steps you can do or help somebody with to get them out of a situation or a mental like block or whatever, instead of just saying snap out of it.
I think that's a good point. One of our friends that I've worked with, her name's Nicola, and she's a great trader. She was saying she went through the trading psychology course that I created, and she was saying that her turning point was that. She's like, I remember, in one of your videos, you were saying you just need to take responsibility. You know what I mean? Which is basically what you're saying, and that's really it. And so there's a couple of different ways to do that. Like you can, if you're journaling and you have a list of your trades, like you can literally pinpoint what went wrong on each trade. And when I'm talking about losing trades here, so if your answer is anything but it was bad luck, it was bad luck, it was bad luck, it was just a loser. If there's anything other than that, then that means that you're like, there's something else that's impacting your trading, right? It's not the random sequence of winners and losers. So, and another way you can do that is, so you can look in your journal and find it, right? You go, okay, well, I keep doing this. I keep missing the trades. I'm always an hour late. So I'm getting in late. My stop loss is too far. I'm risking too much. And that's affecting my reward risk ratio, for example, or something like that. Or every time I have a signal at this time, I miss it because I'm on my way home from work. Or every time I have a signal after 4 losing trades, I don't take it because I'm worried it's going to be another loss, for example. Yeah. Those sorts of things, whatever can creep up. That's one way to see it, is in your journal if you're journaling. But another thing is to ask why. It's called like the 3 whys. I don't know if you've heard this. So what you do is you go, the reason why I'm trading is, or the reason why I'm having trading challenges is blank, whatever it is. So you write it down. Okay. But why does that happen? Right. So for example, like the reason why it's because I'm getting in my trades late. Okay. All right. Well, why are you getting in your trades late? Well, I'm getting in my trades late because I'm on my way home from work. And that's when the 4-hour candle prints, and I can't do it because, I'm on the train or whatever, and I don't have phone reception, or, I'm on the BART or whatever, you know what I mean? Like, I can't do it, and so by the time I get home, it's too late.
Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for 1 entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
Okay, well, why is that happening? Oh, well, the reason why I'm on the train when I'm going home is because that's how I always go home. Could you do something else? Well, yeah. Could you wait until the 4-hour candle prints and then maybe take a look on your phone? You know what I mean? Could you open up your laptop and check your charts in the BART station or outside of it in a cafe or something before you get on BART and just get on a later? Like, there's always a, you know what I mean? Like, there's always a solution. It's just difficult when we put these barriers up and we say this is why, but it's usually not why. There's always something behind that. You can dig deeper and figure out the real reason why is because, well, I want to get home early and I only want to get on the 6:20 train. I don't want to get on the 6:45 train. Like, that's the real reason why, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you could, there's lots of different ways to do this, I think, to kind of dig into, what's going on and what, because it's so easy to say, oh, it's just, I keep missing these trades, or, oh, my broker keeps slipping me, or, oh, the markets are too volatile now. Well, why are they volatile now? So you can use the 3 whys, and then you can do 4, 5, 6, however long it takes you to dig to the real reason. And then also in your journaling, you should be able to throw your trades into a bucket. All your losing trades should go into one of 2 buckets, either bad luck or I screwed up. I mean, that's it. There's only 2 buckets, really. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree for sure. And I think once you start asking those whys, it really comes down to much deeper reasons, right? Like, I don't have self-confidence, or I don't know what else there could be, like, I don't think this is actually going to work, or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's totally it. Yeah.
It's kind of surprising once you start asking those questions, what comes up. Like, you might not expect it, but especially like with your dream analysis thing that you use, right? I was surprised you came up on that one too. So I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the course, but you could you get what you trade for course. But basically, what you're doing is you're trying to figure out what the themes are, right? And you'll notice recurring themes in your dreams. You will notice a couple of really important memories that you remember from when you were a kid, right? And those things. What you're looking for are patterns. And if you want to ask the 3 whys question in a really good state of mind, try to do it right as you wake up, or right as you're going to sleep. Really, it's almost better right as you're waking up, because or after you meditate, right? So you want to be in that really calm state of mind where things, you let them bubble up, like you're not repressing them, you're not pulling them down. So like the first thing you think about right when you wake up, just, why is this happening or whatever, or it's probably going to be easier to get into like a hypnotic or a meditative state and do it. But that's really powerful too, is to be in that state and then trying to dig into it and figure out what's going on. That's really a good technique for people who want to get into that. Or look at your dream themes, or look at the biggest things you remember, like your biggest childhood memories. And why do you remember those? And what does that say about you? What does that say about, can that relate to any patterns, in your life? Those sorts of things. Yeah.
And how do you feel about that? Those events?
Exactly. How does it make you feel? That's right. Yeah.
And I personally found also just kind of building the habit of whatever you're doing during the day, ask yourself, how do I feel about this? And I found that can help you find some patterns also.
Yeah. And it also helps you cut out what you don't want to do in your life.
Yeah, that's true too.
I don't want to be answering these emails or whatever. You know what I mean? Like,
somebody else do it.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.
And then once they get that, then they can become, like a star tennis player or whatever, like, expert on AI. Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. Hey, Walter, what do you think your psychological edge is? I know we always talk about like trading systems and having a trading system edge, but what about a psychological edge? What do you think yours is?
Yeah, that's a good question. So the way I look at it is that a lot of traders, especially the ones that are kind of new to the markets, those are kind of like the easy ones to take money from, because this isn't really kind of an area for them in a lot of cases, I guess. And so my edge really is that I realize that this is where I need to focus on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that means doing whatever I can to be, there's two parts: aware of what's going on psychologically, and then to improve my psychology, right? And so there's lots of different tools for that, and lots of methods for both, really. So if you want to become aware, there's journaling, there's meditation, there's just like becoming more mindful. I know that's kind of like a buzzword nowadays, but that kind of thing. And that's a little bit easier, I think, for introverts, because introverts are, which I classify myself as, because introverts kind of, we think more about, like, we like time alone and kind of decompress, and we think more about what's going on here. Yeah. So I think being aware of it and then having like a plan to improve, those are the two things I think that everyone needs to be, because if you don't have awareness, then like, you've got nothing, right? So that's how I see it. What about you? What's your take on that?
Yeah, I think the biggest gains have come from awareness, basically, and just trying to pinpoint what the issues are, and then finding out the true reason behind those issues, or the true cause of those issues, and not saying, oh, this is just, I'm just revenge trading. Okay, so why are you revenge trading? Are you mad at your mom from when she was like, yelling at you when you're a kid or something, right? So just digging into that, I think really gave me that awareness. And I think for me, at least, awareness is the number one thing also. Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, that's so true, man. Yeah, like you just really need to start at awareness. It's like a kid, when they're growing up, they first got to get their motor development down. Like if they can't, use their voice and walk and use their legs and their hands and their fingers, like they got to get that first. And then once they get that, then they can become, like a star tennis player or whatever, like, expert on AI. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so that's it. Yeah. So yeah, I'm totally down with that. Like for most people, like journaling is going to be the easiest thing, but I think you have to be careful, because journaling is, people think like, and I thought I did this when I first started doing my journals, all I really did was I would take a screenshot of my trade. I actually found my old journals from like 2004 or something. Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
No, 2005, 2006 area. Yeah. And so all I did was I took a screenshot of my trades, I printed them out, and then I wrote kind of like what the trade was, like what system, why I took it. And you know what I mean? So I had a before and after shot of all my trades. And that was cool. But that's not really what we're talking about, right? Like we're talking about what do you think? And so it's more of almost kind of like a diary of your trading development. And that's really good. And I have those too. But yeah, that's kind of the key, I think, is for awareness, is to dig into that. And it's so much better if you write it than type it. And I know everyone wants to, and some people, maybe it makes sense to speak it, and there's enough text, voice to text things software out there that can do that for you. But it's really tricky to do it right, because it's so easy to like say you have a trading journal, but that might be just kind of like a trades journal, what I mean? Not a trading journal. So there's a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because I've been going over mine right here, and it's just kind of like a little notebook that I check off. Okay, these are the trades I took. This was the result. From there, then I put it into a digital journal. But I found that like just marking it off like this really helps me, at least through my trading.
Yeah, and it activates a different area of your brain, and you'll remember it better and all that. Yeah, it's so easy to get sucked into the the fancy online tools and stuff. And there are great trading journals out there, but I think that's the way to do it for sure. Yeah,
I think part of it is also discouraging, right? Like when these journals are too complicated and you have to fill like too many forms. I was like, screw that, and you just stop doing it. So, all right, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Yeah, thank you.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only, and is not trading or investment advice. Last month, I heard about this guy who like some crazy returns in his trading, and his secret is basically mushrooms. So like, I don't know how sustainable that is, but trading on mushrooms.
Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. Hey, Walter, how do you tell the difference between your knowledge or your skills at work and your ego telling you what to do?
That's pretty good, isn't it? For me, that would be execution. So like, ego's tricky, isn't it? Because I think as traders, that becomes one of the biggest challenges the better you get. And if you've ever seen this among other traders, like who've been around for a long time, you will see the ego creep up. And I think it's interesting, because I think as we develop as traders, a lot of things kind of, get easier, I guess, so to speak, in some ways, with experience. Yeah. That's the one thing I think that's not. The way that you phrased it was, how do you know if it's ego, or what was the other thing?
Yeah, when you're making a trading decision, how do you know if that decision is coming from a place of knowledge and skill, or of your ego trying to take over and run the show?
Yeah. So for me, it always comes back to execution. So I need to answer this question. In this part of the trade, whatever part it is, it could be the risk management, the pyramiding, the entry, the exit, whatever. In this part of the trade, did I do what I am meant to do, right? And if I didn't, and you even see this in traders like George Soros was famous for it in his interview in the Market Wizards or New Market Wizards or whichever book he was in. A lot of traders, like if you go to the Traders Who Speak and stuff, those things, you'll see it. You'll definitely see it, where these guys get up there and they say things. And it's funny, because then they get sucked in this trap where it's like, you must do this. Like, this is the only way you can, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
make money in the markets. And I understand why they say that, because that's their experience. And like, they're like, well, man, I mean, look, I look what I've done,
Yeah,
I get that, but that's tricky. I think that's a big trap. The longer you trade, obviously a lot of people are going to fall by the wayside because they quit, but the longer you trade, which means obviously you're making money, the more ego can seep in and convince you that you should break your rules in this instance, or you should do something different in this instance, or that you are responsible for your results and not your system.
Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
Really, because it's kind of like you're a bus driver. you're just driving the bus. Like, you can drive a VW bus or you can drive a Mercedes bus. Don't matter. Like, you got to drive the bus and not wreck it, And so that, to me, boy, man, like, if you can't, that is a really good question, because trying to disengage those two things is, it's a common one, I think. I really do. And I think if you go, like, you guys can go out and look on the internet and see, like, do you hear any traders saying, like, really kind of beating their chest and saying, this is the only way you should do that. You should always do this. You should always do that.
Pretty common.
A lot of times, they're not saying that because, they're trying to lead you astray, but they're saying that because they're coming from their experience, So, I mean, I can't speak to their motivations, but I shouldn't say that. But I think in a lot of cases, they're actually well-intentioned. It's just sort of like, that's all they know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's all they can prove also. Like, in terms of a track record, that's what they can prove, right? So that's what they're going to talk about. So it makes sense from that standpoint.
Yeah, and that's why I think, just reading those Market Wizards books is so good. Like, that was the real eye-opener to me. The big lesson from those Market Wizards books by Jack Schwager was that, like, there's so many different ways. Like, you come across all of these interviews and you just realize, man, like, this guy did that and that guy did the opposite and they both made money. Like, what the, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's really kind of it'll snap you out of the idea of finding the holy grail or the perfect strategy, because you're like, dude, all these guys did totally different things. You know what I mean? And look what happened. Like, it's crazy. So I really like how that, that can help you see trading for what it is, which is really it's a personal journey to match up what you should be aligned with, like what makes sense to you. Yeah. So.
Yeah, for sure. And funny story, last month I heard about this guy who, like, some crazy returns in his trading, and his secret is basically mushrooms. So, like, I don't know how sustainable that is, but trading on mushrooms.
So he takes the psychedelics and then he uses those to kind of see the future or something? Or like, how does
I think he feels the market flow better or something like that. I don't know what that's going to do to your brain long term, right? But, like, it's an interesting thought.
Yeah, that is crazy. It makes me wonder if you can't just achieve that same thing through a different means, through like a non-chemical means or something.
That's what I'm thinking too.
Interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It is an interesting thought, though. All right, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.
I love this analogy. My friends who are into martial arts, they like, be like water, like free flowing. Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. Hey, Walter. So there are some things that I used to say to myself, like, that's not possible, or you're so dumb, or I used to ask for permission a lot. And I realized that I was programmed that way partially because I was telling myself that on a daily basis. And have you come across, what were some of the things that maybe you were programming yourself with just by your speech?
Right. So it's interesting, the way I see it is, I guess you could say that I'm programming myself, but the way I see it is that it's kind of like water. So water will go down the path of least resistance, right? Like down the side of a mountain, and that becomes the river, right?
Yeah.
Okay. For everyone watching this, everyone listening to this, I think what happens is you go down that path of least resistance. And where does that come from? It comes from your experience. So it's exactly what you're saying, Hugh. It's the things that you've heard before in your family, like growing up, and that kind of becomes what you say to yourself. So in a sense, you do program yourself, but that comes from your experience, right? So your individual experience growing up, and particularly experience that you had with the important people in your life, and the experience you had, like the relationship you had with money, that to me is what you're talking about. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what you're saying is true. Yeah. Go ahead.
So you're basically just perpetuating whatever was programmed into you, right?
Yeah. So yes, but I have a very subtle distinction, because I agree with everything you're saying, except I wouldn't say, just me, I wouldn't say it was programmed into you. I would say, like water, like you're like water, right? Like, so we're like the water. I love this analogy. My friends who are into martial arts, they like, be like water, like free flowing. Anyway, I wish, some ways I wish I was like a Bruce Lee, and I'm not. But anyway, so you or I should say Jackie Chan. I guess Bruce Lee is old. That dates me, doesn't it? Yeah. So what I would say, instead of saying that what's been programmed into me, I would say what I've found to be accessible, or like what's easiest for me to latch onto. And what's easiest for me to latch onto as a trader and as a person is what was around the house, what the things that I heard growing up, right? So I'll tell you what the big two for me were that I mostly grew up basically in a single parent household. Okay. All right. And so, my mom had relationships and stuff, but my father, I affectionately call him my sperm donor because he was gone by the time I was 5, that sort of thing. So that was a big one for me, was trying to figure out, like, am I worth anything? If I was worth something, surely, you know what I mean? Like, if I was actually worth something, surely my father would be around. Like, he left. So I must be worthless. You know what I mean? So that's number one. And number two is my mom would always say things like, and my mom was brilliant. Trust me. She did a great job with her kids. Unbelievable. Okay. This is nothing against my mom. I love my mom. She was literally unbelievable, the things that she was able to juggle at the same time. Amazing. So, but what was interesting was that, she would say things like, we can't afford it. And especially money doesn't grow on trees. Where do you think we'll get the money from? So those two things, so kind of like a low self-worth and this thing about money, which is like so hard to get, when in reality, if you think about it, and money is probably one of the most replenishable resources on earth. I mean, they literally print it out of thin air.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Ask any central bank. So that was actually wrong. Like, in both things, I was wrong. Like, the thing to do with my mother and my father had nothing to do with me, right? And then the thing about money is that money literally is probably one of the most replenishable resources in the entire globe. So that was for me. Like, and so what I would say is those things, I use those things to program myself. You know what I mean? I pulled on those things because they were so accessible, because they just were easy. And that was the path of least resistance, is to rely on those crutches. And so I had to, like, overwrite those, you know what I mean? And say, no, like, logically, you can do that two ways. You can do it with logic, and you can do it with simple, like, almost like emotion, or like like psychedelics, or like subliminals, or anything like that. Hypnosis is a little bit of both logic and emotion. But so that's kind of so it's kind of an interesting way to say it. You know what I mean? Like that you've been programmed that way. I would say, we have the choice to program what we want. And your subconscious is to me, your subconscious is like a dog. Like, your dog can go and fetch that paper for you every morning. Your dog can make sure that he does his business in the right corner of the yard, all that stuff, right? Or your dog can attack, everyone who comes to the door and can poop all over the place. You know what I mean? Like, that's your subconscious. You just have to train it the right way to what you want, and that's what will work. You know what I mean? Like that's how I see it.
I believe that everybody's kind of programmed a certain way. I think it's kind of hard to get out of that. What do you think about that? Like, your innate, whatever personality that you're born with.
Yeah, in in psychology, they talk about internal locus of control and external locus of control. So the people that say, like, everything is due to them, like, oh, I'm in this situation because of the world around me. And then there's those people who say, well, I'm in this situation, but I basically chosen this situation through my path, the decisions I've made in my life. And so if I want to get out of this situation, I got to make other choices, And so you kind of see that in people who say, like, they're stuck in a job or whatever, when really, I think internal locus of control is more realistic, and that you chose to go a certain way and got there. And so that's how I would say about your subconscious beliefs and those beliefs that are really kind of driving our everyday behaviors. You're right. I mean, you're right. Okay, you're right. The reason why it's so difficult to reprogram yourself is because most people aren't aware. They're not even aware. Like, they're not even aware of the things they say to themselves.
Yeah.
Like, how they do, like, time management courses? They'll say, okay, write down everything you did for like a day or a week or whatever. And then you have a list and you go, oh my God, I've been wasting my time. Like, you know what I mean? I never do work. I'm always on Facebook.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Well, it's kind of the same thing, I think, with your subconscious, where if you actually took inventory of the things that you say to yourself and the things that you think and the thoughts that you think, you'd be like, hang on. So what's, like, my driving belief system here? What's going on? Like, and those will kind of come up in your self-talk. Like, you get a little tiny glimpse of that when you pay attention to your self-talk. So I think you're definitely on the right track. I think, like, from my point of view anyway, like, thinking that way. But I think we just have to remember that we choose. Like, we literally choose how to run, like which programs to run, how to run them, and we can become aware of those. And another thing you can do is when you wake up in the morning, just start writing. Right when you wake up in the morning, you're in the hypnopompic state. So hypnagogic is when you're going to sleep. Hypnopompic is when you're waking up. And you can literally, in either state, it's a little bit harder to do when you're going to sleep for obvious reasons. But when you wake up, if you can just kind of write stream of consciousness, like in an emotional journal or something, and see those things, and likewise, when you go to sleep, you can make like a really strong fist, really tight, and then as you're falling to sleep, you'll start to feel it kind of relax, and that's when you know you're going to sleep, and that's when you know you should start thinking things that you want to sort of seed your subconscious. Like it might only be one thing, I take the best trading opportunities according to my strategy. I take the best trading opportunity, or whatever, whatever you're trying to, I attract money easily, or whatever you're trying to, like, you know what I mean? Overwrite with all that stupid crap that we've accumulated over time.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think the programming is in the beginning of your life, basically. But then if you don't have the awareness to overwrite that, then it's going to rule your life. But you're right. If the awareness is important, and you just have to overwrite that at some point. Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, I have to say, man, it kind of makes me sad, but like where I live, I have to walk by what in the States we would call it the projects, okay? But it's not, they call it something else here in Australia, I forget, okay? But where I live, I don't have to, but a lot of times I walk by. I usually ride my bike and walk. I don't like to drive a lot. And where I live, you don't have to, right? Everything's right here. So I go by these projects, and it kind of makes me sad because I see exactly what you're saying, Hugh. Like I see people, especially with their kids and stuff, and the things that they say. And I feel like, man, it would be so easy to, not easy, but if they just had this one thing, if they just took stock of what they think and how that, you know what I mean? Like how that's driving their lives, if they could just kind of just become aware of that and flip it, it would make a big difference. And if people just feel like they're stuck,
Yeah, no, I had a similar experience last week. This woman was in our neighborhood. She was looking for directions, and she said, "Yeah, you're all the rich people, but I'm trying to get back to the poor neighborhood." And in reality, these houses they cost less than the ones over there where she lives. But it's just that mentality of this is the rich people and we're the poor people, right? So yeah, it's just a thinking.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Thank you.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.
This works, and then, okay, I'll use it then, that sort of thing. Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. Hey, Walter, how's it going?
Pretty good. How you doing, Hugh?
Good. Good to see you again.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So new podcast, slightly different topic. So I guess we can get started with the first one, which is,
let's do it.
Is psychology or your trading strategy more important?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I guess it's like in science, or in psychology, they're always nurture versus nature. For me, personally, I think I look at it, I did my PhD in developmental psychology. So we're looking at different stages. And so the way I look at trading is kind of the same way, where as traders, we go through different stages, and you may have a different experience to me in terms of, what trading, like what that journey's been like. But I think that there tends to be an overarching commonality among traders, which is essentially that, in the beginning, it's all about the system, and the entry especially. And then later on, you start to learn about the importance of exits. And then maybe you start to get into the importance of your risk rules. And the other side, I kind of look at them as two sides of the same coin. Risk and psychology is sort of the same thing. I mean, in a sense that if you really mess with your risk and really ramp it up, that will affect your psychology. And we all know that as traders, like the sleepless nights worrying about the trades and things like that.
Yeah, right? You get your alarm set and everything, right? Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah, so I think psychology is very important. Probably if I pressed, I'd say it's the most important, but I think it's only important to you once you've already gone through those first stages. That's my point of view. I don't know. What's your experience been like?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of think that if I had to put a percentage on it, maybe about 90% is psychology, because a lot of people, think, oh, the system, but that psychology is going to help you stick with the system, number one. Number two, keep searching for systems until you find something that works. So I think the psychology is like a really big part compared to the system overall.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I always like to think the extremes, and then that kind of highlights things, like the importance of things. So, for example, like what you just said, what if Hugh traded a totally different system, right? Would Hugh still be able to make consistent profits? And my answer would be yes, right? Let's face it, there are free systems available right now in the dark corners of the internet that will work, right? And you just got to find the one that makes sense to you, right? And yet we still spend all this money on systems and indicators and all this stuff. It's the reality. We want someone to put a stamp on it that we believe in and say, this works, and then okay, I'll use it then, that sort of thing. So, but then the reverse. What about the reverse? What if? And so I said the system, right? What if you swap out your system? Can you still make it work? The answer is yes. What if you have a pretty good handle on your psychology today and that's all going well, but then in the future you don't? You lose that part? Would you still be able to make money even though you're trading the same system you've always been trading? And the answer is probably no. So I think you're right. I think you nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. What do you think about this thought of like there's just some basic concepts in trading, regardless of the system, it's always there. So even if you switch systems, you're still looking at a similar type of structure, price structure, or whatever, right? Is that part of that, or do you think it's more of the system?
Yeah, I guess. Can you expand a little bit more on that? Because I want to know exactly what you're
so like if you
focusing on.
If you did like a moving average crossover, right? So that's just basically a turning point. So you could do the moving average crossover, you can do the Bollinger Band, you can do the head and shoulders at that point. That's kind of a system, right? But if you have the right psychology, you could probably spot, oh, that's just a turning point because of this and not necessarily the indicator, right?
Yeah, and that's right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like I think that you can see divergence on the charts without indicators on the charts, right?
Yeah.
Like if you look at charts long enough, and I'll never forget, I had a friend who'd been trading longer than I had, and he was really good at what he did, but he had all these really, like, I think I want to say he paid about, I don't know, $1,000 a month or $800 a month. It was something like that every month to rent these indicators that he used, right? And then he came out to visit me in Australia, and he was looking at the chart on his phone. He goes, oh, I got a signal now. I'm like, what do you mean you have a signal? That's a naked chart. Like, you don't have all your fancy indicators on there, like, because he had to have TradeStation, and I don't know if TradeStation is mobile now, but back then it definitely wasn't. Yeah. And he was looking at his naked chart, and he goes, no, I have a signal. I'm like, dude, that's the 5-minute chart you're looking at, okay? You trade the 3-minute chart with a bunch of indicators. How do you know that you have a signal? And the reality is that he had looked at the market so much through that one filter that he knew exactly where the indicators would be placed. Do you know what I mean? Because he's just so used to it. Yeah. And I think there's something to that. I really do. I think that if you get someone who's been around trading for a long time, particularly with one filter, one point of view, one system, I think they will be able to tell you whether or not they have a trade, even if their crutch isn't on the chart. I do believe that. I really do believe that.
That's a good point. Yeah. It's kind of a crutch at me sometimes, right? Yeah. Cool. Okay. Great. Thanks, Walter.
Yep.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.
When you find like a new system or a new indicator, you scroll back on the charts and you're like, this thing is gold. Yeah. Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. Hey, Walter, what do you think about intuition when entering trades?
Oh, intuition.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a tricky one. There's actually a really good book if people are into this. I think it's called The Intuitive Trader. We can put it in the show notes for people who are interested.
Okay.
It's not very long. It's kind of a small little book, but if you're into this sort of thing. But I actually think the scientist comes out in me when I think about this, because I think that we have a lot of biases that affect our trading. Obviously, cognitive biases, you can look those up. One of them is that we know, like we know when things are going, like, really going to go right. And maybe you're right, but the best way to find out is to test it. So what I always encourage people to do is just keep it in your journal. What I mean by that is, like, if you think that the next trade, like you think you have 90% confidence that the next trade is going to be a winner and unfold exactly as you see it, then write that down in your journal. And then when you have a couple hundred trades, you can actually go back and you can group your trades by the ranking. So like, say, all the 8, 9s, and 10s out of 10, see if those had a higher win rate than the 1, 2, 3s, that sort of thing. Like, that would give you a good sense of whether or not you're right. Yeah. Because remember, the turtles, you guys can read about the turtles, obviously, in the Market Wizards and the New Market Wizards by Jack Schwager, those books, great books and all that. They were taught, they were beginners, of course. They didn't really know much about trading when they got into this, and were trained by Richard Dennis and William Eckhart. They were taught to go with the trade that they thought was least likely to go. So if they were almost fully loaded and their risk rules only allowed them to take on so much risk, they had to stop and go, okay, if I have to take corn or soybeans, and it looks like soybeans looks better to me, like I think it's probably going to work out, go with the corn. Like, that's what they were taught to do, because Dennis and Eckhart knew that we have these intuitions that are typically wrong, at least in the beginning. I do think as you go as a trader, you can fine tune them and get better, and there might be an edge there. But I think in the beginning, it's definitely not an edge.
Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
Yeah. And the open position ratios are a good point to that. Like, people who follow the open position ratios among retail traders, to me, that's a really good gauge of the trend. And so when you see all these people going one way, it doesn't mean that the market's trending the other way, but it often is. So, that intuition that we have as traders, I think in the beginning is probably not so good, but maybe later on we can fine tune that. How have you, I know you've been working a lot on your psychology, and what have you found in terms of, like, do you have any data, or you have any experiences in terms of locking into that and tapping into that as an edge in itself?
I don't have enough data yet, but I think it's exactly like you say. In the beginning, you think you have the intuition, and it's just wild ass guessing, right? But then later on, then you develop some sort of intuition. And then nowadays, it's more like, you have a feeling if the market's going to move in your favor or not. And when I've tracked it, bailing early has been, I've been right more than often than I've been wrong. So you do develop that intuition going forward, right?
Oh, that's awesome. So far your data shows that you have like a bit of an edge there with your intuition.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. That's great news. Yeah. People sometimes ask me, they'll say, hey, what do you think about just like going total free ball, just like whatever, you think is going on and that sort of thing. And I think that's a dangerous path. Like, I think if you just do that as a trader, I think it probably could work if you had decades and decades and decades. And maybe, like I said, you've got good data to back that up. But I think a lot of times, like, for instance, right now, I'll tell you right now, this week as we're recording this, I have a bias on some charts, like the Aussie CAD, the Aussie Swiss, a couple of other charts that CAD Swiss is another one where I want to sell. But looking at the charts, like, I look at the chart and I say, if I didn't have my sell bias, that actually looks like a really good buy. Okay. And it's hard for me to watch the market march and go up and go up, for the last couple of weeks as I'm waiting for a reversal signal to sell and write it down. But that's because I've got my bias. So, I think you really have to decide. And sometimes you can do both. Like you can say, okay, I have my systems that have my rules, and this is my account that I'll do that in. And then I have maybe you have like an intuition account. If you have enough data that suggests that you're good at that, maybe do that and see, and just have a race. See which one's going to make more, see which one, over time comes out ahead. Maybe that's the way to go. I don't know. But I think definitely you got to be scientific about it. You got to test it. You got to make sure that what you think is going on is actually going on, because it's so easy, as we know, when you find like a new system or a new indicator, you scroll back on the charts and you're like, this thing is gold. Yeah. It never works out that way, does it?
Yeah. No. Okay, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice. I don't know why we're just built like that or something, right? Like some of us have that tendency to take it personally.
Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this. Hey, Walter. What do you think of FOMO? How to deal with FOMO? Like you missed a trade. It was a really good trade. It turned out to be a big winner. How do you go forward?
Yeah. And it comes in so many forms, doesn't it? Yeah. Like you could have a situation where you missed on the trade and the trade went just like you thought. And for whatever reason, you weren't around the computer, or you didn't block out that time, or maybe you're on an airplane. That's happened to me before, back when people used to go on airplanes. We're recording this right now when no one's going on any airplanes right now and the airline stocks are tanking. But yeah, so there's that. And there's also the other bit, which is like, I think comes in when, as a trader, you get a little bit more advanced, where you're like, all right, I had this trade and I was in it, but then I got out too early and oh my God, it's gone another 500 pips. Like there's another FOMO where you start to like, and that's dangerous too, because that can lead you to tweaking your strategy, which maybe it's a good thing, but a lot of times that's a slippery slope too, to go down that path where you start changing your system because of one sort of, we might even call it an outlier trade that's not very common, right? So yeah, that's tricky. That's definitely a tricky road to go down. So I think you really have to put it in perspective too and say, like, why do I feel like I'm missing out? Why is it? Is it because my exit strategy doesn't capture the big moves? Is it because I want to trade more often and I feel like I'm under the gun to up my income from trading so I can quit my job? What's the motivation going on there? Is it because all the headlines, like all the news is saying to buy gold and I didn't buy gold? Like where is it coming from? And I think as traders, I feel like our job is to put the pressure should really be coming from our system rules. And I know that seems kind of weird. Like, what do you mean? It's system rules. But I think most of what we do, we should really strive to point back and say, okay, the reason I did that is because of my system rules. Okay, you can argue whether or not those are correct or not. And you might look at my system rules and go, dude, what are you doing? That's okay with me. Like, that's totally cool with me. As long as I can look at myself in the mirror and say, I did the right thing. I took the right trade. That like I followed the rules. That's really important to me. And remember, I don't know if you remember this, but remember at the London conference we did with Rima. Rima's a great trader, right? I think someone asked him during his presentation about trading big shadows, and they were saying, well, what if like it's almost a big shadow, but it doesn't quite it misses it by a few pips or whatever. He's like, dude, you got to have the line somewhere, and he's like, I won't take it. He was like, that's how firm he was. Like, I'm not going to, if it doesn't fit my characteristics, I'm just not going to take it. So, I think that's actually a really good thing. And I know people kind of rail against that, but I think the problem is if you don't follow it in such a strict manner, you just run the risk of blurring all the lines, and that can lead to problems, especially in the beginning. I mean, with experience comes a little bit of discretion, but I really do think if I had two traders and I knew one of them was really conscientious and he was going to follow his rules, and the other one, like, she was a little bit more wild and a little bit crazy, I would bet on the more conscientious trader who's going to let trades go and have that FOMO, even though and miss out, knowing that he's gonna stick to the rules, regardless throughout any sort of market situation. So to me, I think the pressure should come from your rules, I guess.
That's a great point. Yeah. Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode. At least for myself, I think one of the issues was taking everything personally, like being wrong. And that was a reflection of me somehow. You know, I was wrong on that trade, so that's why I'm beating myself up about it. But I think once you can learn to forgive yourself for that and just kind of move on to the next one, like you said, follow your rules, then I think it becomes much easier, right?
Yeah, and you know, you guys, we can all learn a lot from the sports psychology stuff, right? Where the like think about the greatest batters in baseball history, like 7 out of 10 times they sit down. You know what I mean? Like they, you know, it's only 3 out of 10 that they actually get on base or you know hit the ball or whatever, right? Like that just doesn't happen. And it's the same thing. Like to use like an NFL, I like to follow NFL, so gridiron. We call it here in Australia gridiron. The players who get burnt, like the cornerbacks, so they're the defensive players that get burnt, right? And so people are scoring touchdowns on it. They have this thing called a short memory, right? Like, you got to have a short memory, just go back to the next play. The only thing I can control is the next play, you know, and this mentality. And if you can sort of adopt that, maybe read some of those books about sports psychology, you can kind of get that mindset. Like, really, the only thing that matters to me is my next trade. If I screwed up the last trade, if I flubbed up the exit, if I ruined the entry, if I got my risk wrong or whatever, like there was a guy in the forum, he accidentally had a trade size that was 10 times bigger than he wanted, right? So he fat-fingered his trade. Like, it doesn't matter next time. It doesn't matter because it's a new slate. You start over. You just follow your rules again. Like, all that stuff that happened in the past, it really... But the problem is it's so hard, isn't it, as a human to let go of that?
Yeah, it is. It's really hard. And I don't know why we're just built like that or something, right? Like some of us have that tendency to take it personally.
Yeah, and maybe it's adaptive. Like maybe when we were in the jungle as hunter-gatherers, we saw grandma eat that green berry and she died. And so we're like, okay, you got to stay away from the green berry, right? Yeah. I mean, maybe that's where it comes from. It's just like we're kind of fluid in our behaviors and adapting, and that's, you know, that might be like an adaptive, you know, trait in most life, but obviously not in trading. Obviously not in trading. It's really hard to make trading work if you're continually changing. Yeah,
good point. Yeah, short memory. Remember that.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, thanks, Walter.
Yeah. Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice. Hey, Walter, before we start this episode, how about we do the drawing for last month?
Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this.
Let's do it. You got your randomizer on there? Is that what's going on?
Yeah, I think I'll put it in a certain order, and then you pick a number, and then we'll see who that is.
Okay.
So we got 26 comments and ratings from iTunes. So why don't you pick a number between 1 and 26?
17.
17.
Let's see what we get.
All right, cool. So I'm going to hop over to YouTube. And so Veronica Henderson, you are the winner for last month. And what are you giving away, Walter?
Well, we're going to send her a psychology book. How's that sound? Good?
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And that's from you. And for me, Veronica, you get a 30-minute coaching call for free.
Cool.
So,
all right. So Veronica needs to send in her, and where will she send in her, or how will she send in her address or whatever? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'll try and contact her through YouTube, but Veronica, you can send an email to hi@thinkprofit.io, and that will come to me, and I'll take care of you.
Sweet. Thanks, Veronica.
Yeah,
cool.
Thank you, Veronica. All right, cool. So let's get into this week's episode. I thought we could talk about feedback loops, like positive feedback loops, and creating rapid feedback loops to improve yourself faster.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, so from my point of view, the lower the time frame you're trading, obviously, the faster you're getting feedback on your trade decisions. But beyond that, one of the tricky things about trading, I think, is getting stuck in the improvement idea because there's the element of chance, right? So because we can't really account for the random nature of our sequence of wins and losses, we can anticipate losing streaks, the worst type of losing streak, the typical losing streak, the biggest sort of win streak. We can use that to, you can use that to change the way that you manage risk and stuff like that if you want to get really sophisticated. But the other thing is there's a real temptation to ascribe responsibility for a given trade's outcome to elements of your system and then have to go back and, rejig it. So that's one thing that's really critical. So the two takeaways from me would be, if you're trading lower time frame, the good thing is if you can do that, you will get almost instant feedback. Like if you're trading the 5-minute, 3-minute, 2-minute charts, you're going to get this feedback like really quickly, which is great. But there's a real temptation for us to tinker with things. It's never like, you think about it. When the Wright brothers came up with the airplane, the one that they got off the ground, lots of people around the world were trying to get off the ground.
Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just wanted to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for one entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode.
And interesting fact, did you know that Harry Houdini, the magician, was the first guy to fly in Australia?
Yeah, I heard about that.
Yeah, he packed all this stuff and brought it down to Australia. But anyway, so that airplane that the Wright brothers created, like, we, as a species, we don't like just go, we got it. We got an airplane. We're good to go. Like, we don't do that. We're always kind of like making it faster, better, more comfortable, more efficient. Like, that's how we're wired. Like, we're engineers by birth, really. And even you can watch even like little kids when they build a sandcastle or something. They're just, they're always trying to figure out, okay, well, this collapsed, so I'll do that. It's in our nature. And so I think for trading, that can be a bit of a slippery slope, and I'm always kind of guarding people against that, so that's but yeah, so your feedback should be, so you want to account for hindsight bias. So a good way to do that is with your journal. So in your journal, you can write down how well you think this trade is going to work out, like on a scale of 1 to 10 or 1 to 5. I think it's like a 5. This is brilliant. This is a great 1 to 5. This is a 5. This is a winner. And then you can go back and see if your intuition really works. And you can go back and when you exit your trades, go back and look at your exits. How well did you sit with your rules, or did you change things up? So that's a really good way to incorporate that, especially if you're using higher time frames like I am, and your trades kind of take like, why did I take this trade again? Like, you need to have a good record, right? What are your thoughts on using feedback, or how feedback interacts with trading?
Yeah, that's a really good point you made about trying to tweak things. I think people buy courses, or they have forums, and then they always want to tweak them. So that's a good point. I would add to that, I think it's important, especially if you're trading the higher time frames. Like you said, if you're trading a 5-minute, you get a lot of feedback, and you get instant feedback loops, basically, right? But if you have a higher time frame, figure out ways to create that same sort of repetition, but not doing it necessarily in the live market. So you could do Forex Tester, do some back testing, just practice your setups. You could look at your old journal entries and take a look at the winners versus the losers, and kind of focus on the losers and see what you're looking for. And then at the end of the week, you can also take a look at the trades that you may have missed. And, that, like you said, that could suffer from hindsight bias, but that can also give you repetitions that will allow you to improve faster.
Yeah. And yeah, that's great. And the screenshots too, like if you have a screenshot before, like at entry, and a screenshot at exit, right? Yeah. And you can have a screenshot of what you consider to be like a perfect setup and compare that to the one that you're about to take. Make sure, like, am I saying like a similar thing here, or is this very different? Like for me, as a pattern trader, that became really important for me to make sure that I knew that I was trading the pattern and what I saw and not what I thought. you know, the more you get into news and stuff, and I love FX Street. Like FX Street's awesome. They're awesome. But spending too much time on there and reading about what other people think about the markets, to me, that's something that, well, it's the same with any business newspaper or any business website, like any economic related thing. Like you can really get stuck, and you know, to the point where you're blind to one side. Like you just buy only or sell only. So yeah, it's really tricky. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Walter.
Thanks.
All information in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not trading or investment advice.
These are the sorts of people that don't make it as bank traders, right? They get fired. Yeah, they get fired when they make the mistake twice. They're done. Hey, it's Walter here, and you're at the Think Profit podcast, where we're going to help you develop a rock-solid trading confidence and avoid the potentially endless cycle of system switching. Right, Hugh?
That's right. We're going to help you develop a wealth mindset, develop a trading strategy that fits your core personality, and help you overcome the obstacles that stop over 90% of traders.
All right, Hugh, sounds good. You ready to go?
Yeah, let's do this.
So, Hugh, we have a question from a trader, good friend in Ireland, but he's from South Africa. Really cool guy. And he has this issue of he will backtest his strategy, get his numbers, get everything set up, everything's right, everything looks good. But then what happens is during the week, he'll start taking trades that are not part of his strategy. So he'll like see signals from other traders or another system that looks really good that he hasn't tested or whatever, and he'll take the trade. And so the question is, well, what do I do to get around this?
Yeah.
Like, how do I, like, this is an issue. It's really impulsive trading, right? Is what it is. So I have some thoughts on that. Do you want me to?
Yeah, sure. Go for it.
Okay. So there are a couple of things you can do. So this impulsivity, if you take like a personality test, you would probably see that you're high on impulsiveness. So you need a good personality test, like the Ocean, which is the big 5. If you just Google, like, I'll put a link for guys in the show notes so you guys can take it. But if you're high on impulsiveness, then that would be the kind of thing that would come up. And this is tricky because, like, these are the sorts of people that don't make it as bank traders, right? They get fired. Yeah, they get fired when they make the mistake twice. They're done. So what I said to him, I said, you need a trading accountability partner. You need someone to talk to every week. On the weekend or whenever, and just go over your trades and let them go through everything and see why you took this and all that. Also, I like to use you only have a certain number of arrows to shoot. So this is really good for, actually, scalpers use this quite well. This rule where they say, like, actually, I was talking to a trader this week. He has a 5-minute scalping system, and he only gets 2. What he's basically trying to make is, if he can make 1.5% a day, then that's his goal, and he only gets 2 arrows a day. And that's kind of what I recommended to my friend. I said, look, just give yourself a certain number of arrows, whether it's 2 arrows, 3 arrows, whatever is a day. And after you shoot those 3 arrows, you have to come back the next day. And your trading accountability partner on the weekend will say, okay, let's say, how many did you do on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday? Which system was this? Is it a system you actually tested, or was it some, Yahoo on the internet saying that the euro is going to go up or whatever? You know what I mean? That sort of thing. So that was a pretty, and then also I suggested I can put a link in for people interested in the show notes. For people who are interested in the subliminals, there are subliminals for impulsiveness. There's hypnosis tracks for that sort of thing. So if you're accountable to somebody, if you use the arrow technique, if you're working on your subconscious, those are the 3 things that I would recommend to do if this is the kind of situation you find yourself in. Yeah.
Hey there, I hope you're finding this episode useful. I just want to let you know that Walter and I give away something valuable every month that helps traders improve their skills. You can enter to win by simply leaving an iTunes review and leaving a comment on our YouTube videos. At the end of each month, we'll look at the comments and reviews from the month, and we'll pick a winner at random. Each comment and each review counts for 1 entry during the month that it's submitted. So if you're interested in that, be sure to enter after this podcast is over. All right, back to the episode. Okay, cool. Yeah, I personally have a slightly different opinion on that one. I think the arrow technique is good. Like I only allow myself 2 entries per trading idea. So that really limits the losses also. But I think also maybe one thing to consider is if you are maybe you feel too restricted by a system. Like if you should be more of a discretionary trader who just reads price action as opposed to somebody who has a set system and only trades that system. That kind of goes against some logic and some things that I also teach, but I think there is that personality type that is more of the discretionary trader and wants to have more variety, and the system might be like restricting them. And I think that that's something that can be back tested